All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I am with Destination Title Group, and we are going to do some training on the role of a title company and how to prevent fraud, how to identify fraud, and how to accomplish smooth closings.
Okay,
So,
so yeah, let me introduce two of the great speaker we have today with ourselves. So welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. We have an incredibly important session lined up, one that affects every single person who has ever bought, sold or invested in real estate. Title fraud, seller impersonation scams, and wire fraud are on the rise, and the losses can be devastating. Whether you are a seasoned investor, a first time buyer, or a real estate professional, what our speakers are going to share today could protect you from one of the fastest growing threats in the industry. Let's get right into it. It is my pleasure to introduce our two featured speakers from Destination Title Group, a firm with over 60 years of combined industry experience dedicated to making every transaction seamless and protected. First, we have with us Stephanie, the president of Destination Title Group. Stephanie has over 27 years in the title industry with a background that started in IT with one of the nation's leading title software companies before moving into operations. That blend of tech and process expertise has made her a go-to resource for compliance and innovation across Texas title agencies. She is an active member of the Texas Land Title Association, serving on several committees, including education and compliance advisory. Alongside her is Shaye Horton, Vice President of Escrow Operations and Senior Escrow Officer at DTG. She built her career from policy production up and today handles everything from residential closings to multi-million dollar commercial deals, hotels, apartment complexes, land developments, and data centers. She is equally active in TLTA, serving on the regulatory and compliance advisory committees. Together, they bring over 35 years of combined expertise. To today's conversation, please welcome Stephanie and Shay. Stephanie, the floor is yours.
hello, everyone. Um, we're going to get right into it. And I'm not sure if everyone on the call has a solid understanding of what a title company actually does. I think there's a lot of people out there that really think that we just kind of provide the title documents and hand over keys to properties that are purchased. So, basically what we do in the title industry is that we are securing and confirming that the person selling a property, whether that's commercial, land, residential, anything, that they have the legal rights to sell that property. And in turn, once we confirm that they do, we are going to ensure that everything is being filed correctly. We're going to run through and cure or solve any problems with liens, and we'll create a pathway if there are issues clouding title. We're going to create a pathway to correct all those things before we hand over the property to the new buyer. So we basically are ensuring that we are closing a property, that there are no hidden claims, liens, defects tied to the property's history. If there are, we're going to fix them prior to closing. So some of the things that a title company does is we act as a neutral third party. So we're going to look at the contract and go strictly by the contract. So whatever the contract reads, who's going to be paying for what the parties have agreed to, that's our compass. So we're not going to lean one side or another. I like to call we're Switzerland. So we're completely neutral. So we're also going to verify what I just kind of spoke about. We're going to verify that title is clean and it's transferable without any defects, meaning liens or anybody claiming the rights to that property. So we're basically protecting all parties in the transaction. So not just one side or the other. We're protecting lenders, buyers, sellers from any kind of disputes. So one of the first things we do once we enter an order, we're going to go in and do a deep dive with a title search. So we're going to research public records, tracking down ownership back to original deeds. We're going to make sure that the transfer of title from owner to owner is clean. We run into issues all the time where someone thinks a quitclaim deed is a valid transfer of title. In Texas, it is not. They are acceptable, but it is not a clean title or an insurable title. So just that's one of the things I wanted to bring up because there's a lot of misconception about quitclaim deeds. We also identified unpaid taxes, judgments, liens, easements. We identify easements that may be affecting the property as well as mineral rights and things like that to make the potential buyer know what they're looking at. Title commitment is basically it's an official offer to state we're going to insure the property based on certain conditions. So what we do is we set up the requirements that have to be cured or cleared before issuing policy. We're going to list all the exceptions, though. So these are going to be the items on Schedule B that are not going to be covered. Usually those are easements and things like that. And then we have the effective date, which says we're guaranteeing this is what it looks like up until that date. So for clarity, when we do a title search, most counties are at least 2 weeks behind the current date, meaning when we request a title search, that title search is good through or up to 2 weeks prior to the date we're issuing that commitment. So if today was the 14th, the insurable, what we've researched, I should say, what we've researched is good through the 1st of the month. So it's always 2 weeks behind. It's just how long it takes the counties to scan in all the documents that are being recorded on a daily basis. So again, this is kind of a recap. We ensure marketable title. So we make sure that we're clearing liens, encumbrances, legal challenges, and that includes any legal, maybe somebody's behind on property taxes. We ensure that you guys are made aware of any mud, PID taxes, those types of things. We coordinate property surveys. We actually prefer to order the survey. If a new survey is required, we have connections with survey companies that we tend to get surveys quicker, and we're also the ones that are providing the commitment to the survey company. So their legal is exactly what the title says it is. And so what we're doing is we're preventing any liability on the new owner's part that, trying to keep any future legal or financial issues from coming up. So like I said, we're Switzerland. So we're ensuring that the buyers are doing their part and we're abiding by the contract, and the sellers are delivering the deliverables that they've agreed to deliver. And whoever is supposed to be paying for the survey is being charged for that survey. Real estate, we coordinate with the real estate agents and timelines. So we're sort of that little, and I want to say compass again, but we're that hub where all the parties are coming to, and we're getting instruction from all parties, and our responsibility is to make that happen. So there's a misconception about title insurance, or it's not like other in real estate insurance products. It is a one-time premium that lasts as long as you own that property or your heirs own that property. So the title premium covers legal costs or financial losses from claims. I've have some examples of issues that have come up with a client purchasing a piece of property, and it was being sold by siblings. They had inherited the property. They filled out an heirship affidavit stating that they were the only two children of this couple that were deceased. And so title was transferred to the new buyer from those children, and the new buyer was moving into this house, and a surprise sibling showed up. It turns out there were 3 more siblings that were left out of the transaction, and the first 2 siblings lied and said that they were the only ones. So we're protecting that and covering anything like that, any financial loss for that particular buyer. The lender's policy protects the lender only from, it protects their interest in the property for the life of the loan. The owner's policy is what it protects the buyer, the owner of the property. So your equity ownership rights for anything that may arise from an undiscovered defect or a fraudulent issue. So the closing day is kind of a culmination of weeks of preparation. The title company ensures that everything is accurate, that we're paying who we need to pay for, everything is balanced, and that all signatures are captured for proper transfer and execution. So basically, we're traffic cops, we're the neutral party, we keep the train moving. So once closing is done, the title company is responsible for recording the documents. So the deed and the mortgage and any releases of liens that need to be recorded. Sometimes the lender will do the release if it's a payoff or something like that, but for the most part, we handle all of it. So we'll record as soon as the closing is completed, and we tend to do that within 48 hours. And once it's done, then we send out the final executed copies of those documents. All right. So basically, title company is your kind of behind the scenes partner, just making sure that everything is secure. We're reducing your risk of purchasing the property. We are transparent. And trying to, like I said, keep this process moving and make sure that you have legal rights to the property that you're purchasing. So I'm going to go to the next slide and get that going for you. Sorry. And we're going to talk about doing the keeping everything safe from fraud. Sorry, let me get that one. Okay. All right. So I call this defending the deal, how to recognize and prevent a real estate fraud that's targeting buyers, sellers, and investors. So there's a massive issue right now going on with fraudulent real estate transactions and also wire fraud. So most real estate transactions involve several parties. So a lot of those parties they do not have secure email, encryption, things like that. And so it leaves them open. Title usually has an encryption, most do, and they also have wire prevention measures. Real estate agents, some of them are hyper aware and they have secure emails, but many of them do not. So they're using Gmail accounts or Yahoo accounts, things like that, to conduct business. And so those are the emails that are easily targeted for fraud, as well as the seller impersonation and stuff like that. So what they're doing, these fraudsters, they are hacking into people's communication, and they interject themselves pretending to be either the buyer or the seller or even the real estate agent. A lot of times what they do is they're going to hack into someone's email. They then create another email address that is almost identical to the original person's email. They'll add like a number 1 or something that's very inconspicuous, a period, things like that. So making it a little bit more difficult to notice that that email has been changed. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those things. So obviously the cost of these incidents are high, and obviously the higher the cost of homes, the higher the incident average cost is going to be. So this shows that 80% of the wire fraud is targeted towards the buyers, because they basically are the ones either putting a large down payment down on the property, or given their lender. We don't have an issue with the lender so much with wire fraud. They typically are communicating very heavily with us and confirming wiring instructions and things like that. So buyer and the real estate agents are I think, are targeted the most. So it's the losses are very rarely recouped. You know, you make a report and basically that's about as far as it goes. So we have seen fraud. We have not had wire fraud directly in our company, but I have known recently of title companies that have lost money because wire instructions were changed. So at this point, most title companies have in their signature line that they will never change wiring instructions. So we send them out immediately once we get a contract. So when we get the commitment back after running title, we're going to send wiring instructions from the get-go, and those will never change. So, and then we also ask that you confirm with us verbally wiring instructions before we ask anybody to send us money and before we send anyone else money out of the file. We also have a third-party vendor that does a verification on the back end. They're going to go through and they're going to run bank checks to confirm that the account is a real account. It also runs how long that account has been open. Not that there's anything wrong with new accounts. It just gives another layer of research for us to do to make sure that that account wasn't open yesterday in order to claim funds that are not theirs. And so we have a way to confirm all those things and just adds another layer of security. Seller impersonation and vacant lot scams are huge. We get notified at least twice a week from our underwriters of properties that have been scammed. So we are provided property addresses and names of parties that we are supposed to stop and contact the underwriter on if we get any of those in an order. So basically what they do is they use fake IDs to pose as the owner of a vacant lot or non-owner occupied, so rentals or properties that are just vacant. They also will do power of attorney. They will submit a power of attorney to a title company, posing as having the legal right to act on behalf of a seller. And they have, fraudulently obtained that power of attorney using a fake notary, or fake IDs, all those things. So what they do is they really pressure the parties to rush through transactions, including the title company. So it's usually they'll sell the property. They'll be offering the property for something way under market value, and push for a very fast turnaround. And also keep communication all through email, sometimes even just text. So the real estate agents never lay eyes on these people. And we as a title company will have pushback or will be dodged on providing things that we ask for to prove, someone's ID. So the once a property is stolen, it's very difficult and very time consuming and costly to get that property back. I will share with you guys that it is way too easy to create a fraudulent deed and go and physically take it to the courthouse and file it. You don't have to show proof of anything. You can take that document down and just file it, pay for the filing fees, and no questions asked. So I'm sure you guys have seen some of the commercials on TV now. It's like the LifeLock security, where they guarantee you pay them a fee, and they guarantee if anybody tries to use your credit that you'll be notified. Well, they also have a deed lock that does the same thing, where you will be notified if anything is filed of record against a property that you own. So I wanted to make you aware, if you were not aware, that is a thing. It is, and just how easy it is to go and file something with the courthouse. So mortgage fraud and fraud for profit are just a couple of examples where a borrower misrepresents income or employment. This was a huge thing in 2008. It caused a crash in the market where people were making up employment and having, a buddy or something verify that employment, impersonating an employer. Also making fraudulent income statements, things like that. And so they would then be loaned funds on false information, and then eventually that would catch up with them because they couldn't afford the homes. And so all of a sudden we have a ton of homes going into foreclosure. So fraud for profit is more of the parties surrounding a transaction, like appraisers, loan originations, people and closing agents that are inflating the home, the value of the home. So that is with, flipping properties. Not always is a flip transaction bad, but a lot of fraud does happen with those. And so the title company takes extra measure to make sure all parties are aware of what that transaction is going to look like if somebody's buying it for very cheap and then they're selling it behind it for a whole lot more money. Oops. I need to go back one, sorry. Okay, so recognizing some red flags here. If something's too good to be true, it probably is. Every so often you may have, a blessing fall in your lap, where you're getting a property for way undervalued because somebody is desperate, or they inherited the property, they have no use for it, and they just want the money. But I would highly recommend that you slow down and really verify that what you're looking at is what you're getting, and it is a valid transaction. One way to do it is to contact your title company. So if you are not aware, we can run title searches that are called limited liability reports. We actually run them quite often at our company for clients, and so they can see what's on a property prior to making an offer on it. So that's one thing you have, in your tool belt to prevent certain things. If you just got a spidey sense, I'll call it, that something may not seem on the up and up, you can always reach out to your title company and see what tools are available to you to kind of really dig into it. Communication red flags are, of course, people not wanting to be on a video call or meet somebody in person. That really is, meet somebody in person really goes towards the real estate agents. I know that the real estate agents have been taught to lay eyes on their clients. Sometimes that's impossible if the client lives out of state. However, with all the video software that we have available to us, there shouldn't be an issue obtaining that. So if the client is really adamant about using their own notary, title companies have preferred notary groups that they use. For the most part, they're all neutral. They're not swayed one way or another. And so if you, as a buyer, need to have something notarized by the seller, I would suggest that you recommend that you use a notary from your title company. And then other things that obviously are red flags is if somebody changes wiring instructions or banking information at the end or towards the end of a transaction right before money is supposed to move. That is a big red flag. And I would highly recommend that you reach out to the person that is supposed to be sending you the money and verifying that that is a change they made. And again, the title company will never change wiring instructions. Notary, the notary stamps, I've actually encountered this where a notary stamp was fraudulent. The actual person that I was looking at, the notary stamp was no longer a notary, and someone had basically used whiteout, for a lack of a better word, to clear the expiration date of that notary's commission. And I can't remember exactly what gave it away. I want to say there was a difference in the actual document, the signature date versus what the notary stamp said. Something did not make sense. And so we were able to catch it. And that typically goes for people that are modifying without permission, operating agreements. We see that more on the commercial side than we do residential, because a lot of documents that we require, are heavier on the commercial side for operating agreements and things. We did have a client that did get into a lawsuit with an ex-partner of theirs, where the ex-partner had forged a new operating agreement giving him sole rights to sell properties within that company's portfolio. So these do happen. So you can always get on the Secretary of State's website and confirm that a notary, is in good status. And I would, like I stated before, not allow the seller to pick the notary or the closing conditions. So this is kind of a combination of, I wouldn't say that this is on the buyers and sellers to verify ownership independently. However, you can fairly easily, if you are looking at buying a property, you can always check the tax assessor's office. We immediately, when we get a contract in the door, we immediately, before we do anything else, we go to the CAD. So we go to the county CAD and pull up basically a report summary that shows us who the owner is, what their mailing address is. And so we know when we get that contract, it matches. If we notice right off the bat it doesn't match, we're asking questions. So if you are looking prior to bringing your contract or making an offer on a property to a title company, this is one of the ways you can do that. So also having personal contact with these people is obviously the best way, or some kind of virtual meeting with someone, especially if you're not using real estate agents on your behalf. I would highly recommend that you kind of get in the habit of trying to be face-to-face in some way, shape, or form with these people. And then if you get a power of attorney, You need to confirm that they have the correct capacity of transferring or signing on behalf of someone. There are different types of power of attorneys, and so your best bet is running that through your title company. All right, so kind of going back to everything we talked about, checking the tax records, anything you can obviously use digital tools for encrypted communication, remote online notarization. When we are not having sellers come in to closing, and especially when on sellers, they can do the remote online notarization. There are multi-authentic factors that they have to go through to prove they are who they are. And so that is another tool that most title companies have as well in their wheelhouse, where they have third-party softwares that will verify people's identities. And that is one of the things that we have here at Destination. And then obviously, if you do feel like you're a victim of fraud, know who to contact. And the first place you're going to go is to the FBI. So, and they will direct you from there if it needs to be sent to a different department. I've worked for a company that actually was hacked with a crypto virus, and obviously the first thing we did was go to the FBI and make them aware of something had happened. So same thing with email, or if a wire has gone out and you feel like it was fraud, you need to know who to contact. All right, so basically stay vigilant on your security measures, and when in doubt, contact your title company. Talk to your real estate agents. If you're a real estate agent and you need some backup, call your title company. So we have some measures that we can run through and, verify people are who they are, and also identify fraudulent accounts and help you identify if someone has been hacked. All right, I'm going to start the next slide. And I'm going to go into title insurance for Texas here. Okay. So obviously title insurance protects residential homes, commercial properties, land transactions, and we are the middle person for 1031 exchanges. So we will be the person that will obtain documentation from your 1031 exchange company and make sure everything is signed properly before moving your money in or out of a 1031 exchange. So title insurance. Title insurance protects you and your lender against financial losses and defects in your property's title. So we talked about it in the first slideshow: unpaid taxes, forged deeds, liens, unknown heirs. I gave you guys that example of someone filling out an heirship affidavit fraudulently. And so unlike other insurance, you pay one time. It's a one-time premium, and it lasts as long as you own the property and if you hand it down to your heirs. Title insurance doesn't pay for what might happen. It pays for what's already happened. So if there is a transaction, and it could be, let's say the property has changed hands 3 times before you get a hold of it, we're ensuring that anything from that time that you're closing with us backwards, if we don't find something that was brought up as a defect, we're going to insure or handle that financial loss. So your owner's policy, and we spoke about this in the first slide as well, it protects you and your heirs for as long as you hold an interest in the property. It covers improper title transfers, liens, unrecorded liens, basically unpaid taxes and bankruptcy claims. So when we run title, we run it not only on the property, we also do a search on the owner's name as well. So what you'll find is that sometimes you may see on a title commitment that IRS liens come up, and maybe these people own more than one property and this property isn't their homestead. It doesn't matter that the lien is not against the property themselves. And I'll be honest with you, we had a phone call today with a real estate agent that did not understand why a lien was showing up, because it was not against the property, but it was against the seller. And so we get those as well. Then the loan policy or mortgagee's policy, I have not come across a lender yet that doesn't require that in our business. However, I do know that there are some lenders, big ones like UWM, and I don't think Rocket's doing this, but UWM is, where they are accepting attorney opinion letters. And let me just be clear, an attorney opinion letter is not running title searches and curing anything. They look at a run sheet and say, I think, in my opinion, this is safe to buy and not have insurance. So those are being run mainly on UWM with refinances that have happened within a 2-year period. However, there's a lot that can happen in a 2-year period. There can be HOA liens and even tax liens at that point. So as a title person, of course, I'm going to tell you it's not a good idea, but there are reasons why I'm telling you it's not a good idea. So most lenders do require it because it protects their investment, their loan investment against any kind of defects in the title. All in all, both policies protect you against lawsuits and, anybody coming up and saying this is their property when you just purchased it. And it does reimburse you up to the policy limit. So we issue policy on the loan amount for the lenders and the sales price for the owners of the property. So if you bought the property for $500,000, you are covered for $500,000. So I would imagine most of you know the difference between residential and commercial property. So there are differences on how we handle them behind the scenes in title. So there's a standard form for standard policy forms. So a residential is considered 1 to 4 family. That could be a fourplex. On 5 acres or less. So anything over 5 acres is considered commercial. So if it's a high value property, so, say you have $1 million home, $2 million home, obviously it's going to be treated with commercial style review, meaning it's going to dig a little deeper because it's a higher risk. Commercial always involves complex endorsements. There's a lot of different endorsements that go along with a commercial policy that are available that will cover zoning and access and environmental concerns that will come along with a commercial transaction. And title history, it doesn't go back any further because we go back as far as the title plant is available. And it is a minimum of 25 years on any title plant. But commercial properties can consist of multiple parcels. I will back up and say that so can residential. We actually have a client that has a property and did not realize their property was actually 2 tracts of land. The previous title company and closer missed it. And so we were able to catch it and fix it. So just because it's residential doesn't mean it's not multiple parcels. We do run anything over $2 million through the underwriter. We call that over the limits approval. And what they do is they do a deep dive into the transaction, because ultimately they're paying the claim if anything is wrong. And so they do a deep dive on higher end transactions. So land transactions, obviously you have the potential for, mineral rights, leases, different easements. You could have an easement going straight down the middle of a 30-acre tract of land. You don't see it. There's nothing there, but there's an easement there for some reason. So we always recommend that, one, you get a survey. We had a transaction last year that was a 150-acre tract of land. And in that example I just gave you, there was an easement that nobody realized going straight down the middle of it. And the person that wanted to purchase the land wanted to develop it. And that easement was large enough to derail the whole transaction. It was just large, straight down the middle, and it wasn't going to let the developer do what they intended to do with the property. So we're going to find things like that, any kind of rollback taxes. I plan on doing another class on rollback taxes alone because they are very misunderstood. They're very expensive. And I think it's a shock to most people when they get them, when the use of the land changes from ag or, just a simple mom and pop living on the land, and all of a sudden it's going to change into a commercial property, which includes subdivisions. We also are going to do any kind of zoning and subdivision status, whether the property is platted, and any zoning restrictions. So on a lot of these commercial transactions, we do have people that do them on their residential portfolio. We've done one group this year. We've done 10 different residential properties and moved them all into a 1031 exchange, and they turned around and bought a commercial property that totaled that amount that they had collected on selling the residential properties. So basically a 1031 exchange, in a nutshell, it allows investors to defer their capital gains taxes by substituting like-kind assets or properties, and the title company facilitates that. So there are a lot of 1031 exchange companies out there. If you are not working with Destination Title Group, I'd prefer if you did, but if you are not working with Destination Title Group, please ask your title company if their underwriters have partnerships with 1031 exchange companies, because you do get a discount if you use that underwriter as well on your transaction. So all of our underwriters are associated with some sort of 1031 exchange company. First American is our largest underwriter. They are the largest in the nation. I think there's a misunderstanding that Fidelity is. They are not. It is First American. And First American owns their own 1031 exchange company as well. So what they do is they deeply discount if the transaction is being underwritten by First American. Then the 1031 exchange company gives a discount for their part in the transaction. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. If you've used a 1031 exchange or plan on using one in the future. So obviously clear title is required. We have to send all the documentation from the closing to the 1031 exchange. Once we're made aware that that is the intention of either putting property in or an exchange is going to be used to purchase property, we then make contact with the 1031 exchange company and get everything rolling and stay in constant contact with them. So they do require a new policy on the transaction, and obviously, like I said, we engage them quickly. So everybody's on the same page. We get the exchange company on the phone if you're going into a 1031 exchange, and make sure that all parties or the people that are going into the exchange are well aware of the rules and what program works best for them. So we do that on a regular basis with our contacts and our preferred 1031 exchange companies. There's a lot of people that do them that do not understand that there are certain programs that are better than others for whatever the situation is. And then endorsements. So in Texas, we have some standard endorsements that we put on every transaction, residential transaction, and also there's a different set that go on commercial transactions. So T19 is an expansion for survey related issues. So if you are getting a survey from the previous owner and something was missed, and we have obviously seen this, where a fence is encroaching over into the neighbor's yard and there's a dispute or there's an easement in between, and that survey did not list that, a T19 covers that loss. So if somebody has to tear down a fence or anything like that, boundary disputes, all those things are covered under the T19, and it's relatively cheap, especially for a residential property. So it's always an option, and it's better to get it than not. So survey modification, it just removes the standard survey exception when a current survey is provided. So that's T19 stuff. Commercial endorsements address zoning and access and environmental issues for commercial property. There are endorsements for air rights. So we see that a lot in downtown Dallas with the tall buildings. We see it around airports. And then coastal line communities have another whole group of endorsements that are covered for those types of transactions. So if you're doing a commercial transaction and you've got, you just want to know, it would probably be good to ask what types of endorsements are available. Basically, I look at endorsements as it's an additional piece to your policy. So it is like if you have car insurance and you have a windshield that is cracked, window or glass is an additional endorsement or supplement to your policy. So that is exactly what these are. So basically, what you want to try to avoid, and you will hear title companies tell you this from time to time, that a survey is too old. So sometimes they are acceptable if they're still easily read, and there has been absolutely no changes, especially on large tracts of land or acreage properties. A lot of times nothing has changed, but if you don't get a new survey, if it's been too long, you don't get a new survey, obviously you are exposed to issues. And as Vineet said earlier, we have a lot of years of exposure to this. And so we've seen just about everything. And we did have a property about a year ago that was land with a house on it. And the new buyers did not get a new survey, and there was an easement in the front yard that they were not aware of. And so this easement was very close to the house. So again, avoiding issues like that, if you get a new survey, I would highly recommend getting a new survey, unless, again, you're in a residential area in a subdivision, probably not. There's not a reason to, unless a pool has been installed or a permanent building with concrete has been installed on the property, like a shed that's been permanently mounted onto concrete, things like that. You're going to need a new survey. Otherwise, probably not. But on any kind of acreage, land transaction, and commercial, I would highly, highly recommend it. So one of the other questions we get a lot is about taxes. I think a lot of people think that we are collecting taxes all throughout the year on transactions. We do not. We are not allowed to collect taxes until they are actually due. So taxes are due at the end of the year, January 1 for the previous year. So Texas in the arrears for taxes. They come due and payable October 1st. However, even if October 1st has come and gone, if the county has not certified taxes at that time, all we can do is an estimate. And what we do is we take basically a proration and say, okay, we're going to give the seller a credit for the time that they've owned the property during that year. And then, the buyer gets a credit for what the seller has owned it for, and they are responsible for paying those taxes when they come due January 1. So we're not physically paying the taxes at that time until they are officially certified and due and payable. So we're doing basically prorations between the buyer and seller on, seller is responsible up through the day of closing, and then the buyer takes over the next day, so the day after closing. So the title insurance is not saying, hey, we're guaranteeing that there's no problems with the title, there's no defects. It protects against any losses. So not every possibility out there. It's going to be basically over unidentified, again, liens, taxes, anything like that that comes up that we searched. So basically, I feel like communication is the best way to protect yourself. We would prefer you engage us at the very start. We have issues where we are only communicating with the real estate agents. We're not provided either buyer or seller's information to communicate with them. If you are a buyer or a seller, please start communicating with your title company right from the get-go. There are sometimes stories to be told of what's going on with your transaction, issues that one party may be aware of. We're always grateful when someone lets us know if there's a divorce going on or a deceased person on title. Anything like that from the get-go can help us expedite all the search part of the transaction. It also gives us an idea of a direction that we need to head in, so what we may possibly have to cure. So when you need to verify your coverage. So when we give you the title commitment, look at it, and you can see on Schedule B what's not going to be covered, and then on Schedule C what will be covered, as long as the items that show up on that side are cured or resolved. All right. So are there any questions so far?
Yeah, that was a very knowledgeable session, Stephanie. Thanks a lot. Yeah, we got a question. It is, can you share a real life example of a deal that looked too good to be true but turned out to be a scam?
Yes. So I had an instance of seller fraud where I had a person claiming to be having a power of attorney on a piece of property on behalf of a seller. And I actually walked into a conversation that was happening between an escrow officer at a branch office. I was sitting in the lobby, and I could overhear the conversation. It was a fairly small office, and I kept thinking, this doesn't sound right. And so I finally got up and I walked back there to the closer's office and continued to listen to the conversation. And then I asked the escrow officer to introduce me, and I asked this person on the phone some questions. They had provided a power of attorney, but they were claiming that we were not allowed to speak to the seller. And that's always a red flag, always. Usually the seller will make an introduction and say, hey, this person this is my power of attorney, whatever. And so this person was insisting that we not call the seller. And it turns out the phone number and contact information we had for the seller was made up. It was not correct. And so after asking the person on the phone a few questions that they stumbled to answer or the answers did not make sense, we politely ended the conversation with that person. And I looked at the closer and I said, this is fraud. This person is trying to sell this property and I don't believe they have the right to sell it. And so we had to do some old style investigation. We literally picked up the phone and called. It was a very common name. The seller had a very common name, but fortunately it was in a smaller county and town, just underneath DFW. And so we started calling until we actually got a hold of this person's secretary just by chance. And she basically confirmed that this person was not selling this property.
Yeah.
It was vacant land, and it just been sitting there and they hadn't paid any attention to it.
Okay. So yeah, we got another question from Vijay that I'm an investor in a commercial retail development. We are restructuring our LLC interest from a shared ownership in one lot to a 100% ownership of a newly carved out adjacent lot. The issue is that the primary driveway entrance from the public road into the development sits on the neighboring lot, not ours. Once we give up our interest in that neighboring lot, our lot would have no documented access to the public road. The amendment we are being asked to sign is completely silent on this. So his first question is, would our lot to be considered landlocked without a recorded easement over the shared entrance?
Yes.
Okay. The second question, what type of easement would you recommend in this situation?
It's going to be a right-of-way easement. We have had success in the past contacting one. You can purchase the easement from the neighboring lot or acreage, and we have a deal actually right now, and it turns out that it was a separate track. The easement was a completely separate track that this let's say the other person owned. And so the person trying to buy the land that was landlocked reached out to the person that had the easement, that owned the easement. And it turns out that seller had not been paying taxes on that property. And so they negotiated the cost of the back taxes. It ended up being fairly cheap. It was like $6,000. So you can try it that way. You can also contact your county, I believe it's a county commissioner that you're going to reach out to. We had another one of those a few years back, and it was a very large, it was like 35,000 acres in West Texas, but it was also landlocked, and the current owners had just been driving through somebody else's property and nobody had ever done anything about it. But when they went to refinance it, the lender required that there be an official right-of-way easement for them to get to their own property. And we helped them reach out to the county commissioner and make that happen. So those are a couple of ways to try to start resolving it. But the first thing I would do is reach out to the person that owns that property and see if they'll make some sort of arrangement to buy an easement, just, right-of-way easement.
Okay. Another question from Vijay was, would a future lender or title company flag this as a title defect when we try to finance or sell?
Yes. So if it's landlocked, yes. It immediately throws up red flags. We have one of those right now. And fortunately for our clients, they happen to own the property right next door. That was the whole, they bought a piece of property. The property next door was landlocked, and this property had been for sale for quite a while, but nobody was buying it because it was landlocked and they didn't know really what to do. So the neighbors, who happen to be our clients, are buying that property that's landlocked. We still had to do some things on our end to prove that our clients were not going to, once they bought it, that property would no longer be landlocked, because they could get to it through their property. But yes, it does throw up red flags immediately.
Okay. And should the easement be recorded before we sign the amendment?
It doesn't have to be. You can actually, it can be done at the same time simultaneously as closing.
Great. We have another question from Collis that a month ago I have noticed an unusual sale transaction on my property in public sites, but unfortunately in my home appraisal report also the new owner name was shown up. Why and how it happened?
Okay, so repeat that question one more time.
Yeah, sure. A month ago, I have noticed an unusual sale transaction on my property in public sites. But unfortunately, in my home appraisal report, also the new owner name was shown up. Why and how it happened? County records and title record looks good. No unusual transactions.
Okay, I'm going to let Shaye. Shaye has an idea on this one.
So just so I understand this question, somebody owns a property, and a month ago or so, there was a transaction reflecting that this property was sold to another person, and that appraisal notice also states that new person. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So if that happens, the best thing to do is go to the county clerk's office and ask for a copy of that deed. And so what they can do is then the county clerk should work with you to prove that you are still the owner of that property. If you're able to provide an owner's policy, and you should be able to walk that deed back, because then that shows that somebody was trying to fraudulently purchase your property or transfer that property, not purchase it. And so working with the county clerk's office in person is most likely going to be your best bet, because they most likely are the ones that handled the recording of that deed.
Mhm.
Thank
Okay.
you, thank you. And I have noticed similar unusual transaction on my neighbor's home as well in the public MLS site. I don't know whether they are doing, when I dig deep into it, she's a realtor, and I don't know whether she's purposely doing it, claiming the properties, transferring the properties on her name without any sales or something. And weird thing is, like, the seller was reported as her husband. I don't know what they both are together doing it, like the same transaction during the same period of time within 1 month difference. It happened on my friend's property as well.
I've heard this happen actually in the last couple of years. I heard of something very, very similar happening and this one was actually an attorney that I'm thinking of. It was an attorney that was moving her clients' properties into her name. So definitely get down there to the county clerk's office, because it could start an investigation.
And this also could be something to tell you what law office prepared that warranty deed, to where then you can contact that law office and get involved with them to figure out what steps they took to do their due diligence on getting that deed signed and recorded.
Yes.
So every warranty deed should show who the law office was that prepared that warranty deed, because that is a legal document and must be prepared by an attorney.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Appreciate it. Thank you
I'll
so much for the information.
thank you,
Absolutely.
Collis. Yeah, so I would not take any more of your time. So between the two of you, you have seen just about everything. What is the one thing you wish every buyer, seller, and investor knew before they sat down at a closing table?
I'm going to go back to communicate with your title company early and often. The more we know about the details of the transaction, the smoother the transaction goes. So a lot of buyers and sellers leave it solely on their real estate agents to do the communicating. And like I said, a lot of times there's a small little story behind, whatever's happening that could help us expedite one title search and getting your commitment to you, understanding the situations so up front, so we know immediately to engage our underwriter and ask, okay, here's the situation. What path do we need to do? What path do we need to take to make sure that we clear any obstacles? So if we know those things up front, it helps us tremendously, and it expedites all the processes.
Okay. So yeah, Stephanie, Shaye, thank you both so much. This has been genuinely eye-opening, and every person on this call is better protected because of it. For anyone who wants to connect with Stephanie, Shaye, or Destination Title Group team, please reach out to them directly. I will share their details in the WhatsApp group and in the REF app. And for more expert speakers, previous webinar recordings, including this recording, and a community of real estate professionals, join us on the REF app. We will see you next time.
Stephanie, great content. Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate you doing this for all the members.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
We will be at your door.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
It's a great presentation. Thank you for answering all the questions. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
Quick question, Stephanie. The earlier question from VD around the easements and stuff. Who can help me with such transaction? A real estate attorney? If so,
Yes.
do we have any reference, like a great reference, who could understand what we are talking about and then quickly help us, support us with?
Yeah. So we have a partner that actually is an owner in our title company named Dan Schreiman.
Nice.
And he is a real estate attorney. He's a tax attorney, all the things. And so he is a bulldog when it comes to stuff like that. So he can absolutely help.
Wow.
He is out of town today and tomorrow, but he will be back on Monday. So if you want to reach out to me directly, I'll get you his contact information.
Please. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't have your details, but I think I will get from BD.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll share the details.
Thank you. Thank you both. It's a good evening, and then thanks for all that information.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Could you
Thank you,
please
Shaye.
post the contact information?
Yeah, I will share the contact information.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.